All right, so we'll just start, else we'll have too much running over time. So please give a warm welcome to Fatih.
Thank you. Goeiedag, dames en heren. Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Fatih. I am a senior front-end engineer at GitLab, and also a Google developer expert in web technologies. Here's my handle, almost in every social network. I am actually really excited to be in here today because we moved in this amazing city 7 months ago with our 3-month-old son. And this will be my first talk in Amsterdam, and I'm really excited for that. So this will be the agenda today. First, I will talk I will give a quick introduction to Vue, and then I will talk about how we do Vue in GitLab, and then I will talk about the best parts. So let's talk about what is Vue JS. Vue is a progressive JavaScript framework for building user interfaces. Progressive means that it is something that you can put into your existing application, and then you can only do some part of your application with Vue, and then continue doing that. So Vue itself is focused on the core library, just on the Vue layer, but it is really has an amazing ecosystem that allows you to do really sophisticated and large-scale single-page applications with the tools like Vuex, Vue Router, Vue CLI, and also a really supportive tool, which is Vue DevTools. Vue is something really easy to learn. When you compare it with React or Angular, I believe it is the most easy to learn and do cool stuff with it. Also, Vue is something really lightweight. It is only 20 kilobytes minified and gzipped. And also, this is really interesting thing is Vue became the most started project on GitHub in 2017 and 16. I mean, the start count of a repository doesn't mean much about the quality of that, but it shows the interest. High-level interest in it. So I think that's something, like being the most started repository in 2 years in a row in GitHub, I think that's something. So let's talk about how we do Vue at GitLab. Before that, I want to tell what is GitLab. GitLab is an open-source software development tool which provides a single application for every stage of your DevOps cycle. And GitLab's goal to make your software development faster so you can focus on your work more. We have a really cool Git repository management and also a solid issue tracking features like the issue boards. And also you can review your code and use the built-in CI/CD to test and deploy your applications. And then you can also monitor them with Prometheus. We really try to do our best to provide tool for every step of your DevOps cycle. So, like, you can start writing your code, you can review it, you can deploy it, you can monitor it, all in a single tool. That's the aim of GitLab. That's the goal of GitLab. So let's talk about why we choose Vue JS. Again, it was really easy to integration. Like, it was really easy to add. Because at that time, by the way, we are using Vue in production more than 2 years, and at that time, we didn't have really quality or the latest front-end tooling. So that was really easy for us to add Vue.min.js, minified Vue.js into our index HTML, and it was ready for us to use it in the production. So that was a really nice way of using a really solid framework. And the second thing is, Vue is really easy to learn, and it allowed everyone in our team to start contributing quickly. Vue is lightweight, so our app has already heavy. So we wanted to add something small, and Vue was the best one, I think. And probably the most important thing is Vue played really nice with our existing app. So we didn't need to refactor or rewrite everything from scratch with Vue. Instead, we put Vue in our application and start doing these parts with Vue. How we do use it? We use Vuex for state management, and we have standalone single-page application kind of smart components. I know this is kind of it doesn't make sense to read, so let me show you what I mean. OK, so this is the merge request page of GitLab. And in that page, we have this merge request widget where you can merge the merge requests. And this is actually a component called merge request widget. And then we have this one as a divs app, which is an application, which is a smart component, which fetches the data from server on its own and then render itself into a placeholder component, placeholder element. And then we have this discussion counter, which works with the discussions underneath. And then we also have these two small components in the sidebar. So in this page, we have 5 instances of Vue smart components, and they talk they talk together like inside the Vuex store. So they communicate each other. This was a structure, and we do new things with Vue, and also rewrite the legacy stuff only when needed. Like there's a decision point, which is if we plan to add new features on top of existing features, we say, OK, we may consider to rewrite this or refactor this with Vue. Yeah, let's talk about the best practices. So first of all, Vue is a reactive framework, and we will define a reactive getter and setter for every property in your data. It's always a good idea to instantiate your data upfront with initial values, even if they are null or even if they are empty strings. So that's something you should do. Also, again, Vue is a data-driven framework. It will render the UI based on your data. If you manipulate the DOM directly, and then Vue will re-render when Vue decide to re-render the application, you will lose your changes. So you never manipulate the DOM directly. Instead, you should update your data and let Vue to re-render it for yourself. This is something I saw in many places. Like, let's say that you want to use an SVG in the template, and then people basically import the SVG and put it into the data object of the Vue. When you do that, Vue will create a setter and getter, but it will not be changed because it's a static icon SVG, or it's something static. So you basically don't need to do that. What you can do is you can put it into the created hook, like something like this landing SVG or something like that, and then you can use it in your template. Conditional rendering. So Vue gives us 2 main conditional rendering options. The first one is VIF, and the second one is VShow. There's a significant difference between them. VIF won't render the component if the condition is false. However, VShow will render it, but it will make it display none. So it will be in the DOM, but it will be display none. So if you need to toggle stuff a lot on the page, so you may want to use VShow, but remember that it will take more time to render your application because everything will be in the DOM. Conditional rendering. The second thing is about conditional rendering is if you have VIF in the child component's root element, it will always trigger the created hook. Like, let's take a look at this code snippet. We have this should render set to false by default, and then in the template of the component, we say VIF should render. The default is false, so that the component will not be rendered, but we have the created hook here, and it will be executed. Like if you are doing some computational stuff in created hook, this may be something, a performance problems, or this may be something you don't want. Instead, you can move the component. Instead, you can move the conditional rendering to the parent component, like in here, and it will not be even created. So this may be something you want to consider. Let's talk about the computed properties. So computed properties are cached based on their dependencies. And it makes them really, really efficient, really cool. We could achieve the same with the, one sec. Yeah. OK. So yeah, the computed property is cached based on their dependencies. So there's a computed property in here which calculates the unresolved count. We could basically do the same with as a method, pretty much the same thing, and then we can use it in the template. But computed properties is cached, so it is a better idea to use computed properties instead of methods if possible. Another thing is split complex computed properties into as many simpler properties. Let's see this. This is an example directly taken from the Vue documentations. It says it calculates the price of the product, and it looks like kind of a complex. But we can basically divide it into 3 smaller computed properties, which will make our code a lot more testable, a lot more easy to read, and also it will make it more manageable. And also the other thing is simplify complex template conditions. Like this one is we have the if in the template, it looks is logged in, is not liked, and can like. So instead of doing this, we can create a computed property, should render like button, and then we can basically use it in the template. So it will make our code a lot easier and also testable. Single file components. Single file components is one of the coolest features of the Vue. This is how a single file component looks like. You will have your script, template, style, all in the same file. There are some benefits of this approach. First, you precompile your templates on build time. And then when you do that, you will not need to include the runtime template compiler. So this will make your application even more faster and lightweight, because you don't need to ship any runtime compiler. Scope CSS is something really cool in single file components. Like in the classical approach, one of the biggest issues around CSS is when you remove your JavaScript, it's really hard to remove the related CSS file or CSS code. You may like the CSS may be reused in somewhere else, and it may break your application. But with this scope CSS, you basically when you delete the single file component, and also the CSS related with the component also be deleted, and it is because the code you can make sure that there will be nothing broken or nothing wrong with it. And also better editor support. Because of thanks to the tools like featue, which is the VS Code extension of single file components for VS Code. It is an official extension, I think. Error handling. Vue has a global way to handle the errors happen in Vue components. You can set an error handler function, and whenever the error happens, we will execute the callback, you execute the function, you pass that. And we also have this error captured hook. It is introduced with Vue version 2.5.0, I think. It is called error captured when an error happens in that component and also the child components, it will trigger that hook. By using these tools, it's really cool to runtime error tracking using the service like Sentry. Like there is official plugin for Sentry, and you can basically put it into your production code, and you can, when an error happens, it will push the details to your Sentry account, and you can then take a look at that, what's going on in production. Performance. So we have this vue.config.performance set to true, and you need to install an extension Vue performance DevTools, and then you can see what's going on in your application. Like, take a look at this. In this screenshot, the home component init time took 109 milliseconds, which the rest of took like 2 milliseconds, 5 milliseconds. So you can understand that my home component, initialization of my home component is basically like almost 100 times more than from any other thing. So you may think that, okay, there's something going on, I need to check that. Component communication. So you need to pass the properties, you need to pass the data needed by the child components from the parent component. Like, there's a concept in Vue called props down, events up. Pass the child component data as a property. In this example, we pass the is logged in, is liked, and can like properties to button component, which is needed by that component to render its own state. Never mutate the props of parent component in the child components, and don't use $parent. Like, when you mutate the property given to child component in that component, we will warn you. You will see a warning in the console in DevTools. But if you use the $parent, we will not catch it, and it will look like it works. But again, Vue is a data-driven framework, and when your data changes and Vue re-renders the application, this may be the reason of unexpected bugs or unexpected behaviors in your application, and also be the data inconsistency. Use custom events to let parent component handle the action. Like, we pass these properties down to the child components, but what if an action happens in that components? Like, again, props down, events up. Child components should let the parent component to handle the actions. We can do that by emitting an event in that component and handle that event in the parent component. Or we can use event bus pattern. Every Vue instance is event-driven. This means you can emit and listen events on that Vue component. Event bus is simply a Vue instance with no template. I think it's called as the functional instance. When you get the instance and export it as a default of that file, and then you can import it in the child component, and then when an action happens, you can say event bus $emit the event name, and then you can handle it in the parent component. Because the event hub is shared, the event you emit from the one component, you can catch it, you can listen it on the another one. This is especially useful if your components are deeply nested, but it is also some kind of a problem, because you may never know who emits that event or how many times it will be emitted. There is no guarantee of that. So there is an even better way of doing this, which is Vuex. Vuex is a state management pattern and library for Vue applications. It's the official state management library of Vue. I will say consider adding Vue to your stack earlier. It is because Vue's best practice is Vuex, and it makes your life really easier. It will bring some boilerplate to your application, but I think it will make your life easier because there is only one way of accessing the data and updating the data. So we talked about 3 ways of accessing the data and updating it in the last slides. But Vuex unifies all of them. So every developer in your team will do the same thing, and it will make your life easier by reviewing your content, reviewing your merge requests, and stuff like that. Also, it will be the reason of the consistent code base and easy code reviews. So thank you. This was fast.